Geometry, Chapter 3, Parallel Lines and Planes. We're going to have the pre-Chapter 3 Algebra Skills and Practice, do just a little bit of review from the algebra text, solving equations and percentages. We'll be dealing in Unit 2 with parallel lines and planes, defining those. Unit 3, Properties of Parallel Lines and Planes. Unit 4, Proving. Exciting, huh? Proving parallel lines and planes. We'll get to do some more proofs. Angles of a triangle. We already know the sum of the angles of a triangle is 180, but we're going to deal with some other things related to that. Unit 6 is the isosceles triangle theorem, a very important rule that we're going to use forever in mathematics. Not unlike other things, but it just kind of pops up frequently, and it seems that when it does, it causes people problems if we don't remember it as we should. Lots of applications of the isosceles triangle theorem. Unit 7, angles of a polygon. Unit 8, inductive reasoning. Again, the odd answers are at the end of each chapter, and there's a study guide that's a review for the chapter test. So we will pre-chapter skills and practice. We're going to show our work here. The place where you can see the rules to do this again is in the Algebra 1 text. You can find it on the website at www.dballardproductions.com. It's in Chapter 2 of that text, page 33. We would say, is there anything we can do to simplify? And the answer would be no. Then we would say, is the variable x I'm trying to isolate on both sides? And the answer is no. So then that means we're going to need to undo. We have multiplication and addition. We're going to undo addition first by subtraction. When we subtract, we line up our decimals so that the names are the same. And so we're going to have 3.5x is equal to 17.4 when you subtract. Now we're going to undo multiplication by division. So we divide by 3.5. If you use the graphing calculator, which you get to use pretty well all the time, then you could just punch it in and divide 17.4 divide 3.5, and you get 4.971 bloody bloody bloody. So we'll go back and see if that's the right numbers. 17.4 divide 3.5. And so we would allow you to round there. You could go to math. The first choice is fraction, so you'd enter and see if it comes out to be a nice, pretty little fraction, which it does. So we could make a mixed numeral out of it or leave it as an improper fraction and get an exact answer. So an exact answer would be 174 over 35, this mixed numeral, or if you would like, we'll allow you to round here to 4.97. In the Algebra 1 text, we never allowed rounding except in cases that we were dealing with percentages and different things of alcohol solutions and things. We allowed you to round a time or two. So in the Algebra 1 text, again, we would not have allowed the 4.97 to be rounded. In real life applications, rounding is not always very favorable. Okay? Now, let's look at number 2. Well, let's just go ahead and well, let's go ahead and look at number 2. Just kind of want to make sure everybody understands some of this, and I think maybe excessive video may be better than not enough. What we're going to do is we're going to change these to improper fractions. We're going to take 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7 and get 7 over 2x. And then 7 times 2 is 14 plus 3 is 17 over 7. And then 12 times 14 is 144 plus 48, which is 192, plus 3 is 195/14. We double check that. 144, 24, 168. I better multiply that out. I'm trying to mess up here. 12 times 14 plus 3. 12 times 14 plus 3. Enter. 171. Sorry. 171/14. And then in Algebra 1, we learned if there's a bunch of fractions that we can multiply through by the common denominator of all of those fractions and make there not be any fractions anymore for a little bit. When we do that, this 2 is going to go into that 14/7, and we'll have that 7 times the 7 on top and get a 49x. And then we'll go 14 times 17/7. This 7 will go into that 14/2 times that 17 is 34. And those 14 cancels, those 14s cancel, and we get 171. So we multiplied through by the common denominator. We converted those to mixed numerals. We converted those to improper fractions. We then multiplied through by the common denominator. And so now we have whole numbers to deal with. We've got multiplication and addition. We're going to undo addition first by subtraction. And so we're going to have 49x is equal to, we're going to borrow, that makes that a 6, and 11 minus 4 is 7, 6 minus 3 is 3 and a 1. Now we're going to undo multiplication by division. We allow you to leave it improper. So 137/49 is the answer. To change it to a mixed numeral, we would take the numerator, 137, divided by, that's what that fraction bar says, divided by the denominator 49. It'll go 2 times 9, subtract. We have to bar, that makes that a 2. 17 minus 8 is 9. 12 minus 9 is 3. We would put our remainder 39 over our divisor 49, 39/49. And so we get 2 and 39/49. So we made them improper fractions. And then we use the multiply through by the common denominator of 2, 7, and 14 trick. Okay? We'll let you play with number 3. Since you have some decimals here, it might be simpler to change these mixed numerals into decimals, since you know what 3/4 is as a decimal and 1/2 is. If you don't, then go to the calculator and do 3 divide 4, or do it on paper and convert those to decimals. maybe we should do that one because we just want to make sure you know your algebra, and in case there's someone out there that doesn't know it very well, we can at least get you started here. So what I would do first is change that 1/2 to 0.5, and we'd have 2.5. If you don't know how to do that, you do 1 divide 2. It won't go, so we add a decimal and a 0, and it'll go 5 times, and you get 10 with 0 left over, so you get 0.5, so it's 2.5 times x plus 3.2 is equal to 3/4 is 0.75, so we get 1.75 times x minus 4.8. Now, remember, we're using the order of operations horseshoe on page 33 of the algebra text, which says to see if there's anything you can do to simplify in the order. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally looking for distributive property. Well, that's what these blue arrows are, right? Distributive property. And combining like terms. And so you would distribute. And so that would be your first step. And after that, you're going to notice after you distribute, you're going to have x's on both sides. And so don't forget to look at the bottom of the horseshoe, which says to get the variable you're isolating on one side of the equal sign, remembering to change the sign when you cross over. And then after that, you're going to undo in the reverse order. So we're going to distribute to simplify, move the variable across, and then undo, okay? And I'm going to leave the rest of that with you. All right. We're going to go ahead and do number 4 because it's another algebraic application. When I'm teaching the Algebra 1 class and dealing with tax tests also, then I can't get to Chapter 8, which is rational algebraic equations, and so we would not have gotten to one like this. So I would like to do this one for you. What we have is addition of fractions, and we would use our trick of multiplying through by the common denominator. And so we would have to think about what the common denominator between x, 2x, 4x, and 1 would be. And the common denominator would be a 4 between the numbers, because between 1, 2, and 4, the common denominator is 4. And they have a common x, and so we would need that. And so we're going to multiply each one of these fractions by 2x. So we're going to 4x. Excuse me. The numerical portion of the denominator is 4 and the variable portion is x. And so we're going to multiply each one of those by 4x. Multiply through by the common denominator. On the first one, the x is going to cancel the x, and we're going to have a 0.08. On the second one, the 2 goes into the 4 twice. The x cancels the x. We end up with a 3 times 2, which is a 0.06. On the third one, the 4 cancels the 4, and the x cancels the x, and we end up with a 0.05. On the other side, we have a 24 times a 4, which is a 32, and an 80, which is a 112, and we keep the x. So we removed the variable from the denominator, and made there be no fractions at all by multiplying through by the common denominator 4x. Now what we're going to do is anything we can to simplify, and we can simplify here by combining like terms and get 6 and 8 is 14 and 5 is 19 is equal to 112x. Now we're going to undo multiplication by division. We get x is equal to 19 112ths. Which will not reduce. 19 is prime. And so that is the answer written as a fraction in simplest form. Any questions on number 4? Okay. You can find examples of how to do problems like this in Chapter 8 of the Algebra 1 textbook. The Algebra 1 textbook, Chapter 8, is rational algebraic expressions and equations. And we'll leave number 5 to you to try out on your own. Now we're getting percentage problems. Percentage problems are in the algebra text from page 63 through page 63A. Maybe page 62 to page 63A. The little word of means to multiply. You'll find that on page 37 of the algebra text. And to change a percentage to a decimal, we would move our decimal 2 places to the left. You see, 40% means 40 cents. And the way you write 40 cents is 0.40. And of means times, so you would take 0.40 times 100, which is 40. %40 of 80, this is what we began with. We want 40% of that. Again, 40% is 40 cents, is 40 cents. So we're going to multiply 80 by 40% or 40 cents. Percent is like cents on the dollar when you're dealing with tax. Cents per hundred, parts per hundred. So we're going to multiply. We put a 0 as a placeholder, and then we go to the 4. 4 times 0 is 0, and 4 times 8 is 32. And then you count up the number of decimal places in your factors, and you put that many decimal places in your product, and you get 32. Talks about that, counting up the decimals and the factors and putting that many in the product on page 5 of the Algebra 1 textbook. So we'll leave number 8 for you to do. 22 is what percent of 88? Now, if we do this as an algebraic equation, then is means equal, so we would have 22 equal. What percent we would have to call x? Of means times 88. So if we think about page 37, page 38 of the Algebra 1 text, and we simply change words into mathematical symbols, we would have 22 equal x times 88. Now, to solve algebraically, we would undo multiplication by division. And so we would get x is equal to 22 divide 88. 22 will go into 88 4 times, and so that's a fourth, which we know to be the same as 0.25, which we know to be the same as 25%. If we divide 22, we put it in the calculator like this: 22 divided by, for the fraction bar, 88. It's going to kick out the decimal 0.25. What we're going to get is not the percentage as a percentage, but the percentage as a decimal. And then we'll have to think, well, how much money is 25 cents? It's 25 cents. And so we get 25%. Okay? And the rest of them work the same, and so we're going to let you do the rest of those on your own. Any questions on that? Okay? And so that will end the pre-chapter skills and practice for chapter 3.